All right, so today we're going to be describing matter. Well, first of all, why do we want to describe matter in the first place? So, descriptions give us important information about a substance, and that information allows us to classify, to make decisions about, to infer information from whatever it is that we're studying, that we're observing. Um, for example, you might ask the server to describe a particular food you've never tried, so you can ultimately make the decision on whether you want to order it. You might describe a medical problem to your doctor, and your doctor would use that information to make a decision about what she should describe you or to infer or determine your diagnosis. A mechanic might do the same with a car problem. You describe substances every single day. You might describe your clothing or the food you're eating. This is a daily event describing. And chemists like to describe stuff too. They just have to do it in a little bit of a different way than you might be used to. So let's take a look at how chemists describe matter. And I want you to remember that today is going to be a great day. So, what is a property, anyways? A property is just a way that we can describe matter. I might tell you, hey, don't store that hairspray under 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or you need to call poison control if you swallow this toothpaste. You might look at your candy and say, oh, it's purple and it's slimy. And it's currently at 74 degrees. I don't know. These are two different sets of properties. So we have physical properties and chemical properties. And now we're going to break it down a little bit further and see what the differences are. So a chemical property is something that can be observed only with a change to the chemical composition of that substance. Something like reactivity, flammability, toxicity, and radioactivity all result in us having to change the substance to determine it. So I don't know if my pencil is flammable until I actually set it on fire. I don't know if the baking soda is going to react in the vinegar until I actually do it. We obviously know now that a pencil is flammable and that baking soda will react with vinegar. But somebody had to determine these things. We couldn't just look at a substance and say, you know what? That pencil will definitely catch on fire. And we couldn't look at baking soda and say, if I put that in vinegar, it's going to react. I just know it. We had to change the composition of those substances to determine that information. And here are more examples, which many of these you're not going to be familiar with, probably most of them, but I've hyperlinked a few in case you're interested in learning more. So we have electronegativity, which you will be learning about in a couple of units, whether something is an acid or a base, its chemical stability, and several others. Physical properties can be observed or measured without altering the composition of matter. So melting point, size, texture, hardness, color. These are often things we can describe with our five senses. So I can look at an orange and I can tell you its color. I can tell you its texture. If I touch it, I can tell you what type of smell it's giving off. I can take an ice cube and I can tell you its texture and I can tell you what temperature it will melt at. And none of that requires me to change the substance. I don't have to change the orange. I don't have to change the composition of the ice cube. It's still H2O. Just when it melts, it's going to be in the water form, the liquid form, instead of the solid form. But we didn't have to change the composition of that substance to determine it. And there are a lot more physical properties or ways to describe things physically than there are ways to describe things chemically. So we have boiling point and electrical conductivity, We can look at something's mass, its volume, pressure. All of these are various ways or various physical properties that a substance can have. And again, I've hyperlinked a few that you might want to learn more about. So let's just take a look at copper metal. And if I asked you what some physical properties were, you could just look at this image and say, oh, it's shiny, it's a metal, and it's a reddish brown color. And if I handed it to you, you could probably tell me that it's flexible, it's malleable, you can shape it easily. You could do a few tests and you could find the melting point and if it can conduct electricity. But in order to determine these chemical properties, we will have to change the composition of the copper. So I could leave it sitting outside to see what happens, and I would notice that a green substance formed on the copper. I could put a piece of copper metal in sulfuric acid and watch what happened. But I would have to change the copper to see that there was a reaction. We can find out how much copper results in heavy metal poisoning in humans. We can find out if something's flammable. But again, we must change the fact that it's copper in order to determine those properties. And for an example you might be more familiar with, let's look at toothpaste. So toothpaste, it might be blue or white or green, kind of abrasive. Maybe it smells like mint. Maybe it smells like cinnamon. You might know that it contains fluoride ions. These are just physical properties. We're just describing the physical aspects of this toothpaste. Now, chemical properties are things that, once again, we must change the fact that it's toothpaste in order to determine them. So that toothpaste can react with the bacteria in your mouth to make your breath smell fresh. We can find out that its pH is just below 7, which makes it slightly acidic. And we can find out whether it is able to be dissolved in a particular substance, whether it will react with a particular substance. But we must change the fact that it's toothpaste. After you've brushed your teeth, we all know that that toothpaste does not look the same in any way. So we know these chemical properties because it is no longer toothpaste after we learn them. And we made it to the end. So now you should know examples of chemical and physical properties. Understand that some properties can only be determined by changing or destroying a substance. Those are chemical properties. And you should be able to identify 2 chemical and 2 physical properties of any substance. Thanks for watching.